Okay, so you just bought some of my super awesome custom buttons for your Xbox Core or your Xbox One controller, and now you need to know how to install them. So the Xbox Core controllers for the Series S, the Series X, and the Xbox One controllers, they are basically the same. Pretty much the whole disassembly process is the same. There's a couple small differences that I'll go over when we get to them, but basically everything you're going to be doing is the same, whether it's an Xbox One or an Xbox Core. Well, you'll start by removing your battery cover and then taking out any batteries that you have in here, and then you have two panels here and here that you'll need to take off. You can get, I like to use this little thing that I got out of a watch repair kit from Harbor Freight, but you can use like a flathead screwdriver or something. You just want something to get kind of under there and pop that back up. They can be pretty stiff getting out the first time, so you may need to put quite a bit of force into it. And once you have those two panels off, each side is going to have two screws, and then you have one there in the center that's going to be behind this sticker. I already broke that off because I took some of the screws inside out just to save some time in the video. But these are tamper-proof Torx, and they are T9s. Most of the time this screw right here isn't gonna come all the way out, but once you unscrew all them, the faceplate's just gonna fall out. This will usually pop right off. I found usually on particularly the older Xbox One controllers like this, sometimes you gotta wiggle it a little bit to get the frame out of the case. And then you can just take your joysticks and pop those straight off. And you'll need to take this part off and just push it right like that. And that comes off. For these, the bumpers will usually stay on there. For these older ones, older Xbox One controllers, it's a lot easier to pop these off from this side instead of trying to peel it around like this. Push it off from this side, there'll be like little tabs you can push up. And these ones, because they're a lot bigger, they go in a lot more, the bumpers are usually going to come out with it, but the bumpers just snap back in place. You'll just want to like separate them and then pop them back in place, but we'll get to that later. These ones are pretty much the same style as that. Now back here for the cores, there are going to be two wires here. On the Xbox Ones, they're either just going to have one wire or no wires. So if you'll see here, you see how they're not perfectly in line. One's a little bit more to the left, one's a little bit more to the right. The wire on the left is going to plug back into the one that's a little bit more left. The wire on the right plugs back into the one that's a little bit more right. So if you have the plugs in here, you just pop those off. They just pop straight up. And then you'll have two screws here and here. I already took those off. There's a lot of screws in here, so I didn't want to spend a whole bunch of the video unscrewing and then screwing back in. But those are going to be a T6. Once you have those two screws out, then you can kind of gently work your motherboard up. The two motherboards are plugged in together, and you can pop that out. Your headphone jack isn't soldered onto the board or anything, it's just kind of held in by the two boards being together. So take that out, put that to the side. If you're having trouble working this out, you can take the bumpers off if they didn't come off. On the core controllers, the tab pushes out, it snaps over from this way. On the Xbox One controllers, it snaps over. So you'll just, that just comes right off. Now on the core controllers, your sync button mounts in from this side, so it's not gonna fall out until you have this board out, if you don't have the bumpers in there. But for both models of the Xbox One controller, it mounts in from the top here. So once you have this piece and your bumpers out, it can fall out on the top, so you'll just want to take that, set it to the side so you don't lose it. For your second board down here, it has 6 screws in it. Be here, 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 and then I left 2 in there. For putting this back together, having a magnetic screwdriver is going to be extremely helpful. Take your board out. Take this rubber piece off. And then take out your power button. Or your other main buttons. And put your new buttons in. All the buttons, they will only go in their specific slot, and they go in a specific way. The B is kind of easy to pick out because it's so much taller than everything else. But you'll have there the A has 3 smaller tabs on it. This one's a little finicky going in because those tabs aren't like at perfect thirds. So you just kind of rotate it around until it drops in. The other ones, you got your Y, it just has a really big tab and then a small tab. And then your X has a fatter tab and 2 smaller tabs. Once you have those in, you just put that back. Don't forget to put your sync button back in. I almost forgot to put the sync button back in. When you're doing this, you want to hold it up, because if you tilt it or if you put pressure on the buttons, it's really easy to get the buttons to pop back out of their slots. And you start, this is why the magnetic screwdriver is really helpful. Once you get a couple screws in, you won't really have to worry about popping them back out of their slots anymore. Oop. Hit the camera a little bit, almost knocked it off. And once you have all those screws back in, grab your headphone jack. That'll just kind of sit in there like that. Then make sure your plug's lined up in there. Most of them, all the cores are just going to have one plug. A lot of the Xbox Ones just have one plug, but there are some models where there are two plugs. You just want to make sure those are lined up and then pop those in place. Put those two screws back in. Plug these wires back in if you have them. Be a little tricky. You want to try to get them like kind of hovering over the little plug, and then just gently push them down. They don't need a lot of force to push, so if you're having to put a lot of force and it's not snapping in, it's just not lined up correctly. They can be very tricky to get lined up just because of how small they are. Then put your bumpers back in. See, there will be a hole for your sync button. Man, why it's helpful to kind of push the triggers in a little bit too. But you'll see these little tabs, they'll go into slots on the frame there, and they just snap right back into place. You can take this, you can just push that back on. With these ones, a lot of times they'll just go like straight on. With the Xbox One ones, it's good, especially with these ones that are bigger. I want to kind of start by hooking it under the USB and snapping it over. Once you have that all back together, now you can take your new sticks, put them on, just get the slot lined up, then push it on. They're gonna be a bit stiff the first time you put them on. I want them to be nice and tight so they don't pop back up while you're playing. And then after you have it all back together, you may need to give it another good snap down to get it back in place. Once you have the sticks in, then you could put this on. Just these two tabs here, that's what gets power from the batteries into the controller. So you just want to make sure those are poking through the case, or else you won't be able to get power back in. Sometimes you'll need to push your triggers in a little bit while you're popping this back on to get it to sit in there correctly. And then just lay the faceplate back on there. Screw that back together. Put your other 4 screws in. I'm not going to do that just to save a little bit of time in the video, but these, they'll just snap back on. You put them in. If it's being very difficult, like it won't just snap back in place, look at it and see if any of these tabs may have gotten bent. That happens sometimes. It's not really a big deal. You can put it back into place, or if it's just like 1 or 2 of them, you can rip it off because there's plenty of redundant tabs that'll still hold. If all your tabs are still pretty good and it's still giving you trouble, if you're going here first and snapping this way, you can try locking it in there first and snapping it the other way. Sometimes it'll be easier to go one way or the other. And there you go. Your controller's all back together. You have your custom buttons on there. For these, you'll see that the power button's going to be like basically flush with the top. But on the Xbox One controllers, just because there's less material up here, you'll see that the power button sticks up a little bit more. That's really going to be the only difference between these kits on the core controllers and the Xbox One controllers. So that's going to conclude this video here on how to install your buttons. I hope you enjoy your new custom buttons.